I skate out in the middle, and I go up and fall right on my can with my legs like this with Gillette between it. Okay.
You played it off well. Did you get a sponsorship?
I got a great commercial when I got back to Boston. Absolutely.
Welcome to Money Market, a Bank of Tampa podcast. We highlight the businesses, expert business advice, the local economy, and points of interest in the Tampa Bay market. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And please make sure to share this episode with a friend or a colleague. I'm your host, Owen LaFave, the Pinellas County Market President for the Bank of Tampa, Tampa Bay's oldest and largest community bank. And today's going to be fun. So we are joined by NHL Hall of Famer, co-founder of the Tampa Bay Lightning, a Tampa Bay legend. They once said, if Jesus saves, Esposito scores on the rebound. The slot machine himself, Mr. Phil Esposito.
Thank you.
Welcome, Phil. Thanks for coming.
Actually, I still have a bumper sticker in my office at home that says, Jesus saves, Esposito scores on the rebound. And my brother had one in Chicago that said, only Jesus saves more than Esposito, because he played goal.
Good. That's good.
I
didn't know that one.
So, yeah, that was cool.
So typically, I'm suited up for these interviews, but
you got the original on, man. I'm really happy about that.
It's been a long time since I have a new jersey, so it's been a long time since I pulled the old one out of the closet. So this just seemed like the perfect opportunity, and you helped design this, right?
I did. I always loved the front part of it with the Tampa Bay on it and Lightning. Look, I had a huge argument with Steve Yzerman about it because he wanted to switch it. He said it wasn't traditional enough. More with the Red Wings, but the Red Wings have been in existence for almost 100 years. Yeah. So, the tradition, you've got to create your own tradition over the course of the years. And I said, what the heck? I mean, this logo was, I'm not going to bitch about it. I'm not. But I would prefer this one that said Tampa Bay on it.
Well, I love the old. It's just nostalgia. I was happy they kept the lightning bolt going down.
Oh, I argued with that.
Well, I'm glad you won that one.
Well, here's how it happened, too. He wanted to put just the white, like everybody has, that white line down there.
Tragedy.
And I'm sitting there with he and Jeff Vinnick, and I said, look, that's all I know is, Steve, if I'm playing and I'm jumping on the ice and I'm going and I got the puck and I look, it's all I have to do is look and see that lightning bolt on the pant. I know it's my teammate.
Yeah.
So that split second, if I have to look up to see whether it's my teammate, could be the difference between the pass being perfect or being in the skates.
Especially for playing, Toronto, right? Who virtually the same.
Oh, Toronto, I hate those guys. I hate them. We got the same stinking uniforms as them. If you think about it, we look like an inter-squad game when we play them. And I'm passionate about it because I don't care for it, but it is what it is. So you either accept it and move forward, or you say, bye.
Well, at least it was a compromise. I love the lightning bolt. It was, it's iconic. And then can we talk about this?
Oh, yeah. Under the arms, I always I put this extra piece in there with the lines because I wanted to see guys score and put their hands up. And when they did that, I could see that. Unfortunately, we didn't do it enough back then, but we certainly have gotten that. When you think about, we've won 2 Stanley Cups and went to the finals in 30 years. 3 Stanley Cups we've won and went to the finals, 3 or 4 times. So you got Vancouver, who've been in for, I don't know, since 72. Never won.
Never.
Buffalo, never won. St. Louis just won about 4 years ago. But you think about that. And when I was trying to put the team together for here, I can't tell you how many times people in the North would say to me, you're crazy. You can't play hockey in Florida. And I'd sit there and I'd look at the interviewer and I said, let's say, for example, Toronto. I said, you play here at Maple Leaf Gardens, right? because it was called Maple Leaf Gardens then. He said, yeah. I says, you don't play outside, do you? And the guy looked at me and he says, well, of course not. I said, what makes you think we're going to play outside?
Right.
You play inside. You set the temperature at a certain amount. We set it around 70, 69, 70, depending on the humidity outside. And that was the biggest problem we had here. We had to put extra chillers. And a lot of people don't understand what that means, but it would take a little bit of the humidity out, more of the humidity out, because that's what affects the ice. When we played in 2004 and won our first cup against Calgary, I was told by some guys that played on that Calgary team that our ice was better than the ice in Calgary.
No kidding. That's amazing.
Now, you think about that.
Yeah. In Florida.
Yeah, because it's Florida. It's not good. I am so over that
You have to feel vindicated because the Lightning have had just an incredible run over
They have had an
history.
incredible run.
Florida just won as well. So,
and I was happy about that because it just intensifies the hockey in Florida.
I had mixed feelings about it, but
you do?
I do. I'm not a fan of Florida, but I was excited that we had Florida hockey.
We won, but we were there first.
Yeah.
We were here first. We were first in the NHL, not the Panthers.
Yeah.
We won the Stanley Cup first, not the Panthers. Accept it, because all of a sudden hockey is growing like wildfire in Florida. It is unbelievable. I just got involved with a group from Claremont.
Okay.
Orlando. They want to build, they're putting twin pads up now for kids, and now they want to build about a 6,000-seat arena for minor league hockey.
Okay.
The Orlando Solar Bears, they are in the East Coast Hockey League, and they play at the, what do they call that, arena now, where the basketball plays?
Amway. No, Amway. Amway, right?
Amway, is it? I don't even know what it's called anymore. But they play there. But when you have to open up the doors of that big of a building, it costs money.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So if the venues, and you only draw 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people, it costs you even more. So the idea is to get some minor league hockey there, and maybe the G League, which is playing in Lakeland right now, and you put them there, and you can average 5,000 to 6,000, and you can break even or even make a little money or something. And that's what the goal is, and I'm getting heavily involved in it. I'm trying not to be too involved, but the excitement of doing this and starting a junior league across Florida is something that would be really nice, because you have all these kids playing high school hockey now.
Mm-hmm. Including my son, by the way.
When after high school, what happens?
Right.
What happens?
They go up north, right?
If they're good enough,
yep.
They can go north. But you know how many times I didn't make junior hockey until I was 19. Everybody else was making it at 17, 18. Unless you're Bobby Orr or Gretzky, they made it at 16, and I thought about that. I didn't make it till I was 19. I was on that little bit of a precipice that I could have gone over and finished, and I was done, and I'd be driving Euclids, PRs, bulldozers, track excavators in the steel plant in my hometown in Canada, because that's what I did every summer till I was 30 years old to make ends meet, because we didn't make enough money playing. People forget that. They forget it, man,
What do you think about when you look at the salaries today? What do you think about?
I'm jealous.
I am too.
Sometimes I look up into heaven and say, Dad, you could have helped me, give me a break here, But look, I lived, for me, the greatest time was late 60s, 70s, and early 80s. They were just most fantastic times. And in the late 60s, early 70s, I was the top of my game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So when you're at the top of your game, everything is roses, You can have bad personal life. You can have everything else. But when you stepped on that ice, everything was gone. Everything was forgotten except for playing the game.
And I don't know. So, I mean, if you're a true hockey fan, I mean, you know Phil Esposito. And I think, to the average person, I don't really know if people appreciate like how dominant you were. But first player to score 50 goals in a season, you did it 5 times in a row, including the 76 goals when you shattered Bobby Hull's record in 70-71. First player to reach 100 points. You had 126 in 1968 with the Bruins. 5 Art Ross trophies while you were in Boston. For those that don't know, I mean, that's scoring trophy. 2 Hart trophies, which is the MVP. 2 Stanley Cups. I mean, that is just, I mean, it's incredible.
Actually, this is the 72 Stanley Cup ring.
Okay.
I wear it because I was a player, and it's the last one I won as a player. Now, the Stanley Cup rings I got from the Lightning are beautiful, a little big. You can't hardly wear them because they're so stinking big. I mean, that's fine. But this is more like a college ring.
Yeah.
You know, the size is good because you can wear it, and must admit, saved my life a couple of times.
What, out on the streets?
No, in a bar.
Okay. we don't
on the streets.
We don't want to get you in trouble. We don't want to share those.
No,
stories.
never.
So were you one of the first players who just kind of, I mean, not that look, I'm not intending to offend you by this because you did. I mean, you were a full ice player, but kind of camp out in front of the net.
I don't know, to tell you the truth. I was told a guy named Bronco Horvath, who played in the 50s for the Bruins, was a guy that liked to play, they called it the slot. Now, I got to know Bronco a little bit in his later life, but I didn't get on top of the goalie. My benchmark
you're in a sweet spot, yeah,
was the hash marks.
Yeah.
The circles, the dots, hash marks, and that was me. I'd go from dot to dot, hash mark to hash mark, and I wanted to put my stick so that I could be in front of that net and be in front of the goal crease with the stick. Not in top, because now I'm giving up 180 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the guys do nowadays.
Yeah.
Everybody jams the goalie. How the heck does the puck get through? And they wear all this equipment now, which we never wore. I mean, we never had back pads or hip pads or any of that other stuff.
Well, I want to kind of the bravery of that puck flying, 100 miles an hour and not wearing a helmet. I mean, I watched
the helmet was nothing. I mean, come on. We had respect for one another. You don't hit me above the shoulders, I won't hit you. And if you hit me above the shoulders, it better have been a damn mistake, because if it wasn't, I didn't get you, my teammate's going to get you back. And everybody knew it, so we kept ourselves, because it was a respect factory. And they made it mandatory in 1972. I signed a waiver form. I played till 81, so I played 9 more years without a helmet. And honestly, everybody had that respect for one another that don't hit. I can't tell you how many times I've said to a guy, look, I didn't mean that. I'm standing in front of the net and I give him this and bingo, and I got him up high. And he looked at me and I'm thinking, okay, I didn't mean that. And if I said to him, look, I didn't mean that. And he did it to me a couple of times, some people, and they said the same thing. Now, if they didn't, well, then we had a problem.
Yeah.
And then we did what we had to do.
Little retribution, right?
Yeah, and there was retribution. And by the way, you're going through that scoring thing a little while ago. Funny thing is, somebody said this to me 2 nights ago. He says, you're 7th, I think, now in all time scoring. I says, when I retired, I was 2nd. So if I lived to 100, I could be 100. That's what people don't understand. You make a record, big deal. Somebody's going to come along and break it. If somebody scored 92 goals like Wayne did, 93, no, that one I don't think so.
Yeah.
Only because of the block shots. And the only record I got left is most shots on net in one season.
Okay.
You know how many that was?
I have no idea.
550.
Was it really?
There was one game I had 16 shots on
like a
net.
Gatling gun out there.
When I came off the ice at the end of the game, they had ice bags.
Could you
put
put
on my arms? The trainers, they were screwing around with me. It was fun.
So
we had fun.
You started in Chicago.
3.5 years with the 6-team league.
I can only imagine you and Bobby Holt.
He was my roommate.
Yeah.
He was my mentor. He taught me more about life and more about hockey than anybody I ever been around. And when I talk about life, I grew up in what they call the West End of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, Canada. It was all Italians. And it was like, I don't know nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Things like that. Double negatives here and there. When I got to Chicago, and I remember saying it to Bobby, and they put me rooming with him, I guess because I was a rookie and I wasn't playing much anyway. And Bobby, he was a player.
Yeah.
And so, it didn't bother if he bothered me, you know what I mean? And I used to say, I don't know nothing, Bob. I don't know nothing. He said, Phil, you don't know anything. And it stuck with me. I'm telling you. And then with Bobby, I was the guy feeding him along with Chico Macchi. And so feeding him, when I got traded to Boston, Harry Sinden said to me, I'm going to make you your goal scorer. I says, really? He said, I'm going to get you 2 players to get you the puck, and here's what I want you to play. And he showed me the hash marks, dots, hash marks. I says, oh, okay. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, score, paid, more money. Score, money.
Right, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. It's like getting penalties. God, I hated getting penalties because it was missing a shift. My brother, when we played in Chicago, he used to tell the guys like Phil Russell, go after my brother. Get him into a fight. Get him off the ice. And inevitably, every game I would be in a fight with this Phil Russell. He kicked the piss out of me sometimes, and sometimes I get lucky. And I'd sit in a penalty box for 5 minutes, and I'm going, son of 5 minutes. I'm off the ice for 5 minutes.
Just
sitting in them. No more of that. No more of that. But it was my brother. He used to say, stop, you guys stop Phil, I'll stop the rest of the team. Because I could score against Tony.
Well, speaking of that, you scored 2 goals against him in his debut.
Oh, God, that's a funny story. How'd
that conversation go after the game?
Well, Tony gets called up by the Montreal Canadiens. He was with the Canadiens then. He was playing in Houston in the old Central Hockey League, and they called him up to play this game, and they're coming to Boston. As I'm walking up the old Boston Garden, I don't know whether you were ever there or not. It was something. I mean, people were right on top of you. Only sat 14,000 or something, but they were right on top of you. You can hear everything because the glass wasn't like it is now. Yeah. It was only about this, like maybe a foot and a half tops, And people could reach over and punch you or throw booze at you. And it was crazy. But as I'm walking up the ramp, people yell, hey, Espo, you're going to beg us for your brother tonight. All that stuff, like that the Boston people can do. And I said,
I love Boston fans.
Yeah. So the game starts. Look, it was a 2-2 tie. After the game, I have to call. I make 2 calls, one for Tony's wife and one to my mom. And the calls were verbatim, really. Well, how'd he do? How'd he do? I said, he did terrific. It was a 2-2 tie. He stopped 38 shots. He was second star of the game. He was terrific, really good. Oh, boy, am I ever happy. And now, don't forget, both of them are saying the same thing, basically. And they said, by the way, who scored the first goal against him? I said, well, I got that. I remember Marilyn saying, "Oh, Phil, how can you do that? That's Tony's wife. How could you do that to Tony?" And my mom saying, "Well, if somebody had to score against them, I'm glad it was you, right?" And then we talked about the kids and all the rest of the stuff. And then, by the way, who scored the second goal against them? I said, "Well, I got that one too." And both of them said, "How could you do that to your brother? You can't do that to your brother. You're going to ruin it." They were vilifying me like crazy. It was a funny scene. And I couldn't talk to Tony because they ran right away to take the train to go back to Montreal. Because in those days we took trains. And I never forgot that because I played 53 games against them. Not counting playoffs, 52, and I scored 53 goals.
Oh, man. You had his number.
I did.
Yeah.
I one time did a TV show in Boston, and I had him and Bobby Hull on.
Okay.
And it was 8 o'clock taping, and they had a few drinks before they got on. And I was telling everybody, I'm going to tell my brother's weakness tonight. Tonight I'm going to give it up my brother's weakness. So I forget about it. So it was almost the end of the show, right? Tony says, "Hey, big mouth, I thought you were going to tell everybody my weakness." I says, "Okay, my brother's weakness is between his legs." Well, you thought...
How do you interpret that one?
He goes, "What?" I said, "Oh, I don't mean that. I mean the puck." Oh, good night, folks. I said, "Good night." And they were rolling. He and Bobby
That's
were
hilarious.
rolling. I remember that.
You can find everything on the internet. I'd love to see that. I wonder if it's...
I don't know. This has got to be in 70s.
Okay. So a lot of that old stuff, I'll search for it. If I can find it, I'll send it to you.
Cripe, I don't even know if they had video back then. Did they?
Well, so there's only 6 teams. So when you look at the league today and kind of starting from 6 teams, I mean, what's your thought on, there's 32 teams today?
More jobs.
Okay.
More jobs for the players.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of players that never got an opportunity with the 6-team league, either by a bad break or by a manager. For example, I remember my first year going to training camp, I missed curfew by 3 minutes. 3 minutes. And they sent me down.
Oh, wow.
Never gave me a chance again for 2 years.
Okay.
And you think about that. I couldn't go anywhere else. There was no draft. My dad and mom got $1,000 for Tony and I. I was 13, Tony was 12, to sign what they called a C form.
Okay.
Which meant that if you ever turned professional, you had to play for the Blackhawks.
Wow.
Now, they kept me the Blackhawks.
12. Okay.
But they allowed Tony to go, and that's how Montreal picked him up. And then they got him back in the expansion draft.
Okay.
But you think about that. They would send a scout all through northern Ontario, northern Saskatchewan, because let's face it, back then, it was 98% Canadian players.
Yeah.
Maybe 99, There wasn't Europeans and there weren't a lot of Americans. I remember Tommy Williams, who I played with in Boston. He was an American. Jack McCartan, who was from Wisconsin, I believe.
Okay.
He was an American. He also played in the U.S. Olympic team back in the 60s. I don't remember very many more back then.
And now you think about how international the league is.
Well, I think it's the majority is still Canadian, maybe by 2%, 3%. Then it's American. Then it's European.
Mm-hmm.
When Europeans include the Finns, the Swedes, and the Russians. I don't know whether the Czechs are in there. And it's good. It's good for hockey. And I'm one of these guys that believes sport and politics don't mix.
Well, I love that too.
And like somebody asked me about this, they're going to have a 4-team cup or something going on in Canada. And ESPN is putting it on, really. They asked me about it. I says, I'm not for it. 4 Nations, it's called.
Oh, okay.
Remember?
Okay.
And I says, how could you do that without the Russians?
Yeah.
They're good players.
They are, yep.
They're good players. And most of these guys, they don't know about the politics.
Yeah.
when we were there in 1972,
This is for Summit Series?
Yeah, it was communism at its worst. I felt sorry for the people. I didn't like their politics.
Sure.
And we sure made it known we didn't care for it. We were locked in our rooms. They stole our food, stole our milk, stole our soda.
Oh, man.
But really the thing that peed us off, they stole our beer. Damn it. You cannot take our beer.
They had vodka.
They had
beer.
vodka, but the hell with vodka. We needed beer. But it was an experience that I'll not soon forget. I went back in 2012 for the 40th anniversary. And I sat across the table, something like this table, at a luncheon with Putin.
Oh, wow.
And there were 4 or 5 of our guys from the Team Canada team and 4 or 5 of the Russian players, along with Putin. I sat right across from him, and I made perfect eye contact with him. I mean, I pulled no punches, and he just looked at me a couple of times, and the interpreter asked, he says, "The president has one question of you, Mr. Esposito." I says, "What's that?" And I was a little bit cocky. I was. I don't know why.
You, Phil? I can't imagine.
I give him this look like, who gives a crap, right? And he says, "When you fell," I got introduced the first game in Russia.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's a great story.
There was a little flowers, little girls in it, and I squeezed it. I was so nervous. I squeezed it, and I guess when they introduced me, Tony Esposito, I skate out in the middle, and I hit that flower, and I go up and fall right on my can with my legs like this with Gillette between it. Okay,
you played it off well. Did you get a sponsorship?
I got a great commercial when I got back to Boston. Absolutely. But he said to me, if I had done that, he says, I would have been burying my head in the ice like an ostrich. He says, what did you feel like? I looked him right in the eye, and I said, well, you could either laugh about it or you can cry about it. I chose to laugh about it, and I made the Russian people laugh. And I looked up, and I made perfect eye contact with Brezhnev, who was then the premier, the guy with the eyebrows.
Yep.
Comb it back, he wouldn't have a forehead. And I made perfect eye contact with him, and I went,
I love it.
Well, the guy next to him, and he looks at him, and Brezhnev looks at him, and the guy goes,
They're all just afraid.
And Brad Park comes over and he says, I think that guy's going to Siberia.
That's a great story.
Oh, my God. We were eating horse meat, black bear, crow, because they stole all our food.
Wow.
But we still had it better than the people that would have to wait in line. And we had this stupid pandemic, and you go to Publix and they were lined up to go in the store.
So you're having flashbacks.
It brought back, yeah, I did. It did. Man, I don't want any of that. Thank God I'm older. I don't have a lot of time left, right? But I couldn't imagine, and they would open the door at 10 o'clock, and at noon they would close the grocery store. And if you got in to get the bread or the milk, fine. Otherwise, you got nothing. There wasn't a restaurant. The main drag of Moscow, there was 2 cars, and they were both Ladas. You ever see a Lada?
I have, yeah.
They're like a box with wheels.
Garbage, yeah.
Oh, it's awful. And now you go to Moscow, it's like New York on steroids, for crying out loud. Manhattan on steroids in the 70s and 80s. It's a completely different place. And I've been back there up until 2019 8-9 times.
Okay.
The people, heck, I could show you a picture on my phone. I'm at a bar, and a car pulls up to the stop sign, and I couldn't believe it, and I ran out there, took the picture. My face is on the side of a car. This was in 2016.
Is that right? Wow.
From 1972. They played that whole series in its entirety as the games were.
Wow.
September the 2nd, 4th, till the 28th of September. And you can't find it in Canada. They treat us guys in there. We were voted the team of the century. Big deal. But they treat us like garbage.
Now, was it because the series was so close that?
Yeah. We had 3 days to train.
Right.
Plus, I'm playing with guys that I used to fight with.
Right.
How am I gonna? You got to become friends, and we did, boy. The guys in that team, when we played against each other after, I remember Peter Mahovlich with one funny dude. He's 6'5" or 6, and we're going across Red Square, and the soldiers are going yet, and Peter's going yet, throwing them birds and everything. I thought, oh, great, we're gonna get shot.
I'm glad you made it out. I do want to talk about. You are the godfather of the Lightning. How did that happen? Like, why Tampa? Because you were coming from. Your last, I guess, stint. It was New York, right? Yeah.
I was broadcasting with the Rangers in '85. I got a call from a guy named Art Barron, who ran Paramount.
Okay.
Paramount owned Madison Square Garden. I don't know. Has any of you seen The Offer? Mm-mm. The story about how The Godfather was made?
Mm-mm.
Watch it.
One of my favorite movies, so I will watch it.
Watch it. It is terrific. I even tested for the part of Gino.
Oh, no kidding.
In that. Yeah. And Tony Canigliaro. Yeah. Do you remember that name?
Yeah.
He got beamed with the baseball. Yeah. He tested for part of Sonny.
Okay.
Let's not forget James Caan and Pacino and these guys. They were off Broadway nothings. They weren't anywhere. Anyway, when I went there and tested, and when I saw the show again, I just thought, wow, I relived all those moments. Now, the problem was when I met Coppola, they wanted me to give up hockey for 6 weeks to do the filming, and they wanted to pay me $5,000. Now, this was in 74,
okay.
73, 74. And I said, look, I'm making $100,000 playing hockey, and you want me to get $5,000 for 6 weeks? I'm sorry, man. That ain't good. Pass. Well, it was such a low budget. And when you watch this series, The Offer, I don't know what the hell it's on. I can't remember now, but it's a tremendous offer. But the Lightning, I was offered a job by Art Barron. Either I take the general manager's job at the Rangers or I don't work for Madison Square Garden.
Okay.
Well, we had just built a house in Bedford, New York. My wife was into the horses. Man, did I think they cost as much as they eat as much as Secretariat did, but he won millions. They won a blue medal or a blue ribbon. What the hell is that about?
My condolences. We had a horse for a little bit, so I can relate. So thank goodness
I got to befriend Paul Newman, though, because Joanne, his wife, was also riding at the same thing. And him and I used to sit in his half-ton and drink 12 pack of beer while we're waiting for them to poop, 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 poop. What the hell is that? Anyway, I digress. I'm sorry. And so they offered me the job and says, you don't understand. You either take the job or you don't work. So I took the job as general manager. Didn't want to do it, but they gave me so much money, so much more money than when I played, that I couldn't believe it. And they gave me like a 6-7 year contract.
Okay.
And after the first 2 years, 3 years, they didn't like the way I was doing it. I told them it would take 5 years before we got there, but they didn't want to wait. Typical.
Mm-hmm.
So when they fired me, I still had 4 years left on a contract. And I knew that I could never get another job in New York. I remember talking to Louis Piniella about it. The only guy that ever got a job back in New York in sports was Billy Martin.
Okay.
Yogi never got back to the Yankees. He had to go to the Mets, if you think about it.
Yeah. I haven't thought about it, but you're right. Yeah.
It just didn't happen. Neil Smith, he won the Stanley Cup in 94 for the Rangers. Mm-hmm. He hasn't had a general manager job since. They fired him the next year, and he's never gotten another job. What is that? It's like you make it in New York, you make it anywhere, that song. You get fired in New York, you are dead.
Fired everywhere.
So I was on the marketing committee of the marketing committee, and knew we wanted to expand. I didn't know where, I didn't know what they wanted to do. So I sat in my basement, and I didn't know what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And I sat there, and I finally said, I know they want to expand. I'm going to call John Ziegler, who was then the president. We didn't call him a commissioner like Bettman is. He wants that commissioner. He was the president of the league, Ziegler. I said, John, I want to go for an expansion team. Can you give me all the particulars? He said, are you serious? I said, no. I'm dead serious. I said, I need to get all the particulars. I'm going to go for it. He said, well, Phil, I will have them people send you the Planet 6 expansion and all this other stuff to you. But there's one thing. Stay away from Texas.
Okay.
I says, I don't want to go to Texas. I want to go to Florida. He said, fabulous. We could use a television market if you can get something in Florida. I didn't realize the following year Minnesota moved down to Dallas.
That's right, yeah.
That was already set, see? So I fished around. I came down here. I went to Orlando. They wouldn't even let me in the building. Pat Williams was running the basketball organization. I wouldn't let me in the building. I went down to Miami because he had buildings. Mm-hmm. And also an ex-basketball player played for the 76ers, wouldn't let me in the building. Oh, golly, I can't remember his name now. But anyway, then I met a fellow named Henry Paul. Henry Paul is a lawyer from here. His dad was Gabe Paul. Gabe Paul was president of the Yankees, Cleveland Indians. He was with Morsani trying to get baseball here early on. They tried to buy Texas years ago. I don't know if you remember that. You might not, because it was maybe even before your time.
It was. But...
And so I went and talked to him. And when I drove down from Orlando and met Henry, Tom McEwen, who was with the Tampa Tribune, a guy that owned QYK Radio, Country Western, I think, and two lawyers at the old Malios.
Sure, yeah.
Which was one of the best places I've ever been.
Which I'd say Bank of Tampa helped finance that and get it off the ground.
I know.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yes. Yeah.
Good for
Jerry Divers. Jerry Divers.
Because I'll tell you, it was a great place. And I met them all. At the end of the night, I looked at Henry and I says, you're born and raised here. Do you think hockey could survive here? He went, well, we love football. We love wrestling. We love boxing. We love car crashes. Seems to me you got it all in hockey. I went, I'm going to go for it. Are you with me? He said, yep. We shook hands. We've never had a piece of paper, and we're still partners on doing things.
Wow.
I think about that sometimes. This man...
That just doesn't happen.
Especially with an attorney, you know? You walk in an attorney's office, you might as well turn your pockets inside out. I mean, come on. It's insane. But this guy was so genuine, and it still is to this day. I mean, he and my brother and I really liked each other. And Tony was a hire. Tony was my first hire. Tony did not want any part of what we were doing. He was fine in Pittsburgh. He was general manager for a while, and he made good money, Tony, and whatever. And he was fine. But once we got the franchise, I says, come on, what are you going to do? Nothing? Come on down here. He says, how much can you pay me? I said, well, we're not going to pay everybody like everybody else in the league. We can't afford it.
Right.
People that came here that first 3 years got 20 to 30% less than anybody else in the league.
Wow.
Just to be here. I never forgot that, including myself, by the way. Everybody, from the stick boy to the trainers, whatever.
How do you get the team here without a stadium? I mean, because we played in Expo Hall, which I feel like I remember there was bleachers.
We went over to what is it called? Tropicana?
Tropicana, which, was the...
We went over there.
Baseball arena or something.
And I tried to talk to them, giving us a lease. They wouldn't give us a lease. So as we're driving back over the Franklin, I said to Henry, you're telling me there's no place in this whole area that you can put 10,000 people in a building to watch hockey? He says, I don't think so. He says, maybe the fairgrounds. I said, where the hell is the fairgrounds? I didn't know. I was new to here.
Yeah.
He says, well, I'll take you there. We drive up to the fairgrounds. We go, and those, remember when we had, I think they do it in St. Pete now, the Grand Prix? It used to be at the fairgrounds.
I don't remember that. So
It was at the fairgrounds when I first got here. So that's 90, 91, 90.
Yeah.
Anyway, we walk in, and there's this long corridor. I pace it off. I said, we can get 200 feet of ice here. But can we get 10,000 people? As I'm walking, I turn to the left, and there's Paul Newman.
Oh,
because
again,
he was
horses.
He races.
The races, that's right. Yeah,
he was a race car driver, And we got talking, and he said, what are you doing? I says, I'm seeing whether we can put a rink in here and get 10,000 people. He looked, he says, are you crazy? I said, I don't know. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. Anyway, after they left, we went. The owners are coming down, all the expansion committee's coming down to inspect and see if we can do that. So I had them push all the seats back, at the fairgrounds. It was big. And we put police tape, 200 by 85, because that's the rink size.
Yep.
And they come walking in, their helicopter lands. They come walking in, and they're pacing, and they're going. I said, are you sure you can get 10,000 people? I said, oh, yeah. Those things move out. Now, you got to understand, it was only 9,700 or 9,400 that you can put in that building. When that helicopter took off, I went there and put the rink down to 183 by 85, put 500 seats at one end, 500 seats at another. We had 10-4. Nobody ever knew it was 183.
Yeah, no one's marking that. Well, Phil, thanks for coming on Money Market.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it. I guess I talked a little bit much, but I like your bank.
No, you were great. No,
I do.
Thank you so much. So if you have a question or future show idea or would like to be a sponsor, you can send us a message at moneymarket@bankoftampa.com or find us on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, and on Instagram at Bank of Tampa and online at bankoftampa.com. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you around in the Money Market.